Why don't we get started? Welcome everyone. Super glad that we have almost 40 plus people here joining us on a Wednesday evening. Welcome to the Accelerate series. Our topic for today is on preparing for college and recruitment fairs. And we'll jump right into it. Um, my name is Sahil Maherali. I'm going to be one of the hosts. So for context, I'm a recruiter at McKinsey and Company. I focus on campus recruiting. I'm based out of Austin, Texas. I also am a lecturer at UT Austin at the Macomb School of Business. So I teach a marketing upper level elective class there where we have a guest speaker series. And then I graduated from UTSA back in 2018. So really excited. Still go to UTSA. I'm actually wearing a UTSA polo. Funny enough, I didn't realize that. Really big fan of the school. A little bit about myself. I started off my career at Dell. I did learning and development overseas. So I was setting up call centers all over the world. So I got to, like, for example, live in Panama and a few other places, and set up international call centers. Then I went into consulting. I was working at Cision. I was focusing on marketing analytics, and then completely pivoted, went to go work at UT Austin. I was a career coach there. And then now I've been at the firm. It was 2 years last week. So super excited and happy to talk about sort of the recruiting experience. So when we jump into today, we'll go into just what is the Accelerate series, right? So each and every one of you pay dues for AK Sci, and you're like, hey, look, what are some opportunities that we could think about providing content nationally? So a lot of what we do at the Accelerate series is think through on what does professional development look like. Each of you are hosting your own resume workshops, LinkedIn workshops, networking workshops on campus. The team has sort of kind of come together and it's like, why are we doing this on repeat when we could really come together? We could bring speakers from all over. We have two really awesome speakers today, from two completely different industries, and they'll be talking through their experiences, and I'll sort of be talking through mine. Some of our upcoming workshops as well is going to be thinking about an advanced professional degree. So for those of y'all who are thinking about like the 2+2 MBA programs, for those who are thinking about taking a master's, should you do it right after, right before? How long should you wait for an MBA? We'll be talking through a lot of those topics. We'll be talking about AI in business and sort of kind of how do you think about upskilling now, so that way as a freshman, sophomore, junior, you could sort of have the skill set needed. Then we will be going into our breaking into series. So we'll have breaking into investment banking for those of y'all who are trying to recruit for 2025 or 2026 summer. Going to be talking through what does the timeline look like and those experiences. And then my favorite topic, breaking into consulting, and how do you think about playing the long-term strategy, not only for 2025, but 2026 as well. Why don't we jump over? Would love to introduce our next our hosts for today, our speakers. We have Jason and Noah. I've had the opportunity of working with both of them in different capacities. Jason, you want to kick us off? Why don't we go first? We'll do professional history, and then we'll talk about your AK Sci history.
Yeah, thanks, Sahil. I appreciate it. And thanks for everyone for being here today. Super excited to pour into you guys. My name is Jason Nacario. Professional experience wise, graduated from Baylor University back in May 2023 and started my career at PwC in software consulting, software sales for the last year and a half. And I am starting a new job in about a couple of weeks as an account manager at Google on their large client sales team. So I'm going to focus on advertising with Fortune 500 clients, kind of nurturing those relationships between them and Google. So very excited to be out there. I'm currently in Dallas, Texas, but moving to Los Angeles. So if there's any Southern California people, would always be happy to connect. But yeah, AK Sci wise, I joined AK Sci as a freshman, rushed at Baylor. And ever since then, never looked back. I love the community that I built there. Had a few different roles on the executive board, and now I'm still in touch and great friends with my brothers today here in Dallas. So yeah, AK Sci is a great place to be, especially if you're younger. I know there's a lot of freshmen here today, so we're here to help you guys out and get the job of your dreams hopefully one day. So yeah, thanks for having
Awesome.
me.
Yeah, for sure. Noah, over to you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sahil, and thanks everyone for jumping on to listen today. I'm Noah Rischitelli. I'm currently a strategy consultant at Southwest Airlines. I've been at the company for about 2 years, Prior to that, I was working for Zillow Group in the now discontinued Zillow Offers platform, which is an iBuyers platform for residential real estate. That was my first role out of college. Started on the acquisition side, doing underwriting for home acquisitions for the portfolio, worked my way into portfolio analytics, and finally finished as an asset manager for about a year before they decided to shut the department down. And so excited to share with you guys from the AK Sci side. I was at Arizona State University, accounting major, graduated 2018, part of the IOTA's I chapter there. Had a couple of executive board positions while I was there, involved all 3 years, starting sophomore year to senior, and am a life loyal member as well, which I highly encourage for you guys. Definitely stay active with the fraternity. There's a lot that comes from it. And I'll say, even just with my Southwest Airlines job, I work with a brother on our team, and I'm at the company because of that connection. So highly recommend keeping those connections open and following what you can. So
Awesome. No, thank you. And thank you guys for jumping on it. And again, just to sort of double down on what Noah was talking about as well, I had the opportunity of working with Jason when he was chapter president and I was a regional director. I've run into Noah multiple times over the years, and really it was just 3 text messages each. And I'm like, hey, can you do it? What's the date? Yeah, let's do it. Like, really easy. So definitely don't forget the alumni network that comes in, and that's why we're having the series. But why don't we jump into our conversation for today, which is just going to be on understanding the entire career fair recruiting experience. So I know this topic might come a week after your career fairs, week from now. I know, for example, at UT, there's a career fair tomorrow for liberal arts that's open to all students. So really just want to be very tactical on what can we do here. So why do companies even go to career fairs? Why do they matter for us? Then we'll be talking about how do I think about preparing for the career fair? So how do I know who's going to be there? How do I make sure that I know what's top of mind? And then what am I really, really looking for? And then lastly, what is the secret sauce in making sure that you're able to work it together? So we'll jump into understanding recruiting fairs, and that's where I'll sort of kick into today. So really just want to make sure again, once more, that everyone fully understands that the reason we're doing this is recruiting fairs are one of the biggest ways that students get jobs. I'm a product of that story. There was actually a career fair that I went to my senior year, and I met Dell there, and that's how I got my job. And so definitely I'm a huge advocate for, as much as it might seem like sometimes too overwhelming or too much of a waste of time, or you think it doesn't work, like it truly does. And we'll sort of talk through why that is. So let's jump. Yeah. So when it comes to recruiting fairs, the entire purpose of it is for universities to host an opportunity for every single employer to have an equitable experience jumping into it. Some companies will only be recruiting seniors, some will be recruiting freshmen, and it's really to bring together the entire market and audience together for the university all at once. A lot of universities will almost turn into like a career week where they'll do like mock interviews, they'll have workshops throughout the week. Companies will do info sessions, they'll do invite-only dinners. And it's really just to bring together the most amount of value for the students in one week. If we just use again, like the average like Baylor or a UT, you have almost 4,000 to 7,000 students in the business school are going through that experience. So there's a lot of students who are recruiting all at once. And it might seem like, hey, there's a lot of companies here, but in reality, companies are only looking for a small percentage of those students. So we'll talk through why that is, but we'll go to the next slide real quick. And so when it comes to why the career fair should come to you, I think it's really important that you realize, and we were talking about this before you guys all jumped on, is that going to a career fair is a very repetitive experience. You can't just go once and it's going to work out. You really have to go with it over time. And the reason is to get direct access to employers. There was one employer at Randolph Brooks Credit Union, a recruiter who saw every single time my freshman year, sophomore, junior, senior, and we built that relationship. By the time senior year came, he was like, hey, don't even worry about applying. Just fill it out as a formality. We want to interview you. So a lot of it is this long-term relationship building that you're doing as well. A huge aspect is finding these opportunities. Most companies might only be looking for juniors and seniors, but it's a really good opportunity for you to find some companies that have freshman, sophomore programs, or even programs where they have flexible requirements. The next is starting to build that network. A lot of companies, and I'm sure Jason and Noah will talk about it if they've had the opportunity of representing their company at a career fair. It's oftentimes not just the recruiter themselves, but different individuals who work in the role. And it's a really easy way for you to get access. So for example, if PwC was there hiring for their accounting program and say Jason was an accountant, you actually get direct contact of hearing what's going on, and that relationship you're able to build from there. And lastly, you just get to see what's happening in the market as well. Oftentimes at career fairs, we just think about the big name companies, but there's hundreds of companies that come to a university career fair, and it's about walking through the aisles, seeing on who you might not have expected, and having those conversations. But let's jump to the next slide. So what I want to do is sort of kind of talk through why fall recruiting and spring recruiting really matters, and why you shouldn't just wait for the next semester. And I think this is a huge misconception. The first is look at which companies are recruiting in which part. So for example, McKinsey's applications passed even before the career fair. Deloitte is next week on October 2nd. Accenture is next week as well, I believe. And a lot of these companies are using career fairs as like their last push for the fall. But a lot of industries like marketing, for example, might not be recruiting until the spring. So what you want to do is you want to think on what industry am I looking for and how do I go from there? Also, when it comes to spring career fairs, chances are, rather than you just applying to millions of jobs online, you go to the career fair, you tactically know who's even recruiting. Because if a company paid $500 to $1,000 for a spot at the career fair, they're looking to hire somebody. So it really helps you zone in on who are the people top of mind for you. When it comes to understanding the recruiting cycles as well, it's important to understand that a lot of these happen in waves. So if we think about tech, for example, your FANG companies are oftentimes going to be the first ones to recruit. Then is going to be like your Dell, your Intel, your hardware companies or Adobe's or anything like that. Then your smaller companies. So what you want to do as well, you want to track and see on what are the companies you're targeting. There will be some that come to the fall and the spring. There will come some that only go to the spring and some only to the fall. I would look at your university's previous year career fairs and see who those companies were, and list it out from there. And then lastly, just a huge part of it is thinking through on the specialized career fairs. For example, there will be career fairs that are only for education students. There'll be some for only law students. I know a lot of universities in Texas will split it out as like a STEM career fair in the morning and then an all majors in the afternoon. So definitely think through on what makes the most sense. And the reason why is because if you go to a school which has like a split career fair, they actually swap out the employers halfway through the day. So yes, definitely see based on your class schedule, but think about that experience as well. And lastly, just look at what's happening around the career fair experience, right? So I know, for example, this past week at UT, I took part on a panel on Tuesday. I helped with mock interviews. Then we held an info session. So a lot of these companies will be hosting almost 3 to 5 events. They'll be hosting private dinners. So really the career fair is the anchor, but everything else happening around it is super top of mind, and for you to really plan for that. But yeah. Awesome. I'm going to pass it over it and would love for you guys to sort of start thinking through on, look, now I know I want to go, like I'm convinced, or I already was convinced before I show up. What am I really, really thinking about? But yeah, I'll pass it over.
Awesome. Thanks, Sahil. We'll jump into part 2 here. So one of my favorite quotes that I've heard around preparation is that success is the combination of preparation meets opportunity, right? So if you have an opportunity that comes to you, the more likely that you are to be successful in that opportunity is based on how much you prepare for it. When it comes to a career fair, there's a lot of prep that you can do to make sure that you're going to be a valuable candidate to companies and somebody who's going to stand out amongst the crowd, because there are a lot of other students that are there looking for the same opportunities that you are, and you want to set yourself apart in any way that you can. One of the first things that you can do is research who's going to be there. Like when you are going, know what you're looking for, what types of companies you're looking for, who you're interested in, and what industries you're looking into, because there are so many options out there. It's tough if you don't have an idea what you're looking for and can speak to those things. You want to identify your top choices, and that is in a bunch of different areas. So first of all, look up companies that are of interest to you, companies that are in the space that you want to be in the industry you want to be in, and are of the size and culture, location, And then you want to create your top 10 list before you get to the career fair, and make sure that with the limited time you have, it's very easy to get lost in conversation with fellow students and with recruiters, and time can run out before you know it. And you want to make sure that if you know there's 10 companies you want to visit and have a conversation with, make sure that you have a plan, make sure that you allocate your time, and that you're very strategic about your route and your timing throughout the career fair. The last thing is understand that companies have a ton of different roles. You'd be surprised to find out that there are so many different things that you can do within the same company in the same industry, and make sure you have an idea of what specific roles that you're interested in that company and be able to speak to that, because a recruiter is going to be impressed that you've done your research and know the type of work that you want to do in the area you want to do within the company. So the next piece is make sure that you have your personal pitch together. You want to make sure that you're able to introduce yourself and obviously stand out amongst everybody else that's there. The first piece is talking about timing. You want to keep it concise, 30 to 45 seconds. There's a ton of students there. There's limited recruiter resources, and they are looking for all the candidates there that evening for the best fit for those positions. So you want to be sure that you can deliver the hard hits and sell the things that you want to sell in a short period of time. Keep it very brief and very clear. And I would come with the plan to tailor that pitch to the industry and to the company that you're planning on going. So we talked about that list of top 10, kind of have an idea of how you're going to adapt your 30 to 45 second pitch to each of those 10 companies and how you're going to sell to each of them. Make sure that you start, obviously identify yourself, who you are, introduce yourself with your name, your study, and your major of field or interest. Be very clear in introducing yourself in that manner. Highlight the key skills and experience that you have, 1 to 2 key strengths, skills, and experiences that relate to the job that you're speaking, and tailor those skills to the company and role that you're interested in. Finally, express your interest in the company. Show that you've done your homework by stating why you're interested. Be very specific. Make sure that they know that you've done your research. One thing that I like to recommend to everybody is there's always current events that are going on with every company and every industry. And if you have the ability to share that you've done your research and know something that's going on in that company's industry, that's a really impressive way to get a conversation started. The last piece is end with a call to action. Conclude with a question or statement to keep that conversation going. You want to make sure that everyone that you interact with has a reason to remember you and has a reason to be interested in continuing conversations. So if there's something at the very end of that you know that you would be able to keep the attention of that recruiter and keep an open relationship, make sure that you can do that. The last piece is practice and adapt that pitch. So before you go to the career fair, make sure you take a few moments to practice that pitch, so that it doesn't sound like you're saying it for the first time. I will say, and I think Sahil can speak to this more as a recruiter, but it's pretty apparent if it's your first time giving your pitch. So make sure that you do have that practice and you're able to comfortably share all of these pieces and be very clear and concise so that you can give that pitch effectively.
Noah, if I was to sort of kind of push you on this a little bit more, how do you think this pitch is different than like the interview? Tell me about yourself, like, because obviously in a career fair you have less time. How do you sort of look at the difference in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in the interview at that point, you have already made it clear to that company and they've made it clear that they're interested, right? And at that point, you're really looking for presenting your efficacy to take on that role. What are your skills and knowledge and experience for that specific role that you have been tasked to interview for? And you can get a little bit more specific. And at that point, you know there's interest, right? But at a career fair, with the 30 to 45 seconds that you have, you're trying to get them interested in you. And at that point, you have to have very quick hits and be able to explain to them like why they should be interested in calling you to an interview for that company, for that role you're looking for. So it's a little bit different in that aspect. All right, next piece. We love to talk about resumes. So make sure that you have your resume all polished and up to date before you get to the career fair. Make sure that everything is current. I would always recommend, no matter what, even in advance of preparing for applying to jobs or a career fair or anything, have your resume up to date as often as like monthly, and just make sure that you're keeping it updated, because it's a big bummer when you're at a point where you may have a job that comes across the table that you want to apply to, and you're not quite ready to submit that resume and get that application in immediately. I know we talked about in part one, timing matters, and you want to make sure that you're prepared to jump on those opportunities when they become available. Make sure you keep your resume clear, concise, and well formatted. Recruiters look through resumes extremely fast. It's a quick scan. A lot of times they're just looking at headers and quick hits, and a lot of times they don't have the time to review all of the line items and text that you're writing in narrative, and they're looking just at the experience, and make sure that you just have all of that highlighted very clearly, and the things that you want to highlight are quickly accessible by a recruiter. Make sure that all of your formatting is very well polished. It shows if it's not, and a really well formatted resume definitely gives you an edge up. And then the last thing is definitely keep it to one page. Recruiters do not have the time to review more than one page. Oftentimes, if you submit a multiple page resume, they're only looking at the front. So if you have stuff spread over multiple pages, they're only going to see what you have on that first page. So everything you want them to know about you, make sure you have it on that first page, and make sure the whole thing is one page. Last piece is highlight relevant skills and experiences. Include keywords from job descriptions that you're interested in. This is a really new thing that's been going on in the business world now, where a lot of times there's algorithmic or artificial intelligence screening on resumes, because recruiters simply don't have the time to review thousands of resumes that come in for jobs. So a lot of times they'll use some sort of computer or algorithmic process of pulling resumes from an application stack. And if you use the keywords that actually are present in the job description that you're applying for, oftentimes those algorithmic screeners will flag your resume and pull it for further review. Include quantifiable achievements. This is a very, very important piece to have from the work you've done, whether that's as a student and it's the work you've done in school, or if it's in your professional career and the things that you've done. Make sure that you have some way to quantify the impact that you've had and demonstrate that you have value to the enterprise. The last piece is, with this resume, yes, you can email it. Yes, you can send it digitally. That's a lot of times what we do, but it's very important to make sure that you bring paper copies to the career fair. And I will speak from personal experience. One time I actually volunteered as a student campus ambassador during a career fair for a firm I was interning with. And we would take paper resumes and basically rank them from 1 to 10 and put them in a stack. And they would go to the recruiter and they'd go through all of these paper resumes and basically pull ones that met their career requirements for number screening. So having that paper resume to hand, if you don't have something to give them that ends up in that stack from the career fair, you may not even end up being noticed. So make sure that you have those available to give to recruiters while you're there. And the last piece, LinkedIn, very important. Make sure that your LinkedIn is very polished. Update all of the key sections. Sahil has graciously shared his as an example on here, which is a very good example of what a solid front page of a LinkedIn career should look like. Make sure your professional headline is updated. And within that professional headline, reflect your career goals and your experience within there. Oftentimes, when recruiters are looking through LinkedIn profiles, and they're looking on the sidebar, that's the only thing that shows. And they might scroll through, and if there's something of interest within that initial professional headline, that's going to be the item that they'll click to look to your profile further. In the profile summary, highlight your skills and experience and your career aspirations. People want to hear your story. They want to know what you're interested in, what you're capable of, and what you're able to contribute. So make sure you have that all updated very clearly. And your experience and skills, list all of your recent roles and skills. Keep it concise. Again, make sure that you're very clear about what you're sharing, and make sure that you're sharing the top hits of things that are going to show your value. And then the last piece is enhancing your visual appeal. So for your profile picture, use a high quality professional profile. Make sure that it's professional, but also make sure that it showcases who you are. A lot of it is people want to know who you are as a person. And oftentimes in interviews or in discussions, it's kind of the personal facts that are interesting about you. The fun facts, we'll say, that will catch attention. So if you can demonstrate that, that's a good piece. And then for your background image, choose a relevant or branded background image, whether that's something within your industry or the company that you work for or something that you're interested in. That's a good item to use for that background just to catch attention. And then the last piece is if you are interested in an industry that requires any sort of work samples or project links or demos of your skills or any sort of multimedia aspect, there are features on LinkedIn that allow you to share that. And if it's valuable to the industry or the employer that you're looking to recruit with, definitely include those things on your LinkedIn profile because it's available for all of them to access at any time and be able to use as interest for you as a candidate.
Yeah, and just as like proof of a recruiter, want to definitely call out. I would like right now, I think as of this morning, I had about 1,100 LinkedIn requests from the month of September. I will not accept anybody who doesn't have a picture. If you didn't write a personalized message on where we met, most likely won't accept you. So it's like really goes a long way. Like know that a lot of these people you're talking to, especially like the thing about if you go to a career fair and 800 students talk to the same recruiter, there's no way they remember 800 conversations, right? So definitely make sure you're thinking about that super top of mind. But Noah, back over to you.
Absolutely. We'll hit on the last slide here for part two, what to bring for your career fair experience. We just talked about resume. Make sure that you have printed copies of your resume ready. Make sure they're updated. And again, kind of on the same thing as I spoke with on the pitch, tailor your resume to the different roles or companies that you're applying to. So feel free to make different types of resumes and different drafts that are tailored to certain industries or certain companies. That'll help you have an edge in that space as well. Bring your phone. A lot of things nowadays are digital. There are a lot of QR codes that you can scan for, surveys or application links, or being able to just say, "Hey, I attended. I spoke to a recruiter." They track all that and they'll keep that log. So bring that so you have the opportunity to have your name in the bucket in that sense. Make sure that you have it to take notes and manage your schedule. And as we spoke earlier about having your top 10 company list, it's a great place to have it. Just have it on your phone, be able to go through, have your plan, have your route plan through the fair. It's a good way to stay organized. And then if there's a career fair app, oftentimes there are, especially if it's a large school or a large fair, download that in advance because sometimes you have the opportunity to build a schedule for visits throughout the fair. And oftentimes you have the opportunity to connect with folks that will be there, whether that's fellow students or employers or anyone that's at that fair. So definitely download that and take advantage of the resources that are available there. Next, make sure you bring a notebook and pen if you like to use that. Just keep that accessible for taking notes if you prefer handwritten over using your phone or doing it digitally. And then finally, a folder or Padfolio. I think that's a great resource to have to keep your resumes in an organized fashion, especially if you decide to tailor them. You can separate each of your different resumes tailored to industries or companies by a separate tab or a divider, and that helps making sure that you're distributing the right resume to the right employer or the right industry in that sense. So.
Yeah, thanks, Noah, for covering that aspect of the conversation. We're going to move along to the third part, last part before questions, navigating college recruitment fairs and following up. So I guess I'll start off with a story, kind of just talk about the importance of a career fair in general. I know like a lot of times it's a daunting experience to go over to a career fair. There's hundreds of tables around, probably thousands of students, long lines. But I had a friend my junior year. His name is Grant, also an AK Psi brother at Baylor, and he, in my opinion, is a great fit for any company. He was a very bright person, had great experience, but he kind of drew the short end of the stick with recruiting. And it came down to the spring of his junior year. So usually for business majors, you're recruiting in the fall, but he didn't have anything yet. He went to the spring recruitment fair, the career fair, didn't really know what to expect, but ended up getting a great conversation with Boston Scientific. Kind of snowballed from there, was able to follow up great, set a great impression there at the fair. He had a couple of dinners with them and ended up doing a bunch of interviews and getting the job. So I think that kind of highlights the importance, even if feel like you're late, if you feel like, you kind of drew the short end of a stick with, finding a great internship or job, there's always hope. And I think that is important to highlight when you're talking about career fairs. But I'll go ahead and jump into the
I think we might have lost Jason for half a second there, but no worries. Josh,
I'm
there we go. Oh, Jason, you back?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, now we hear you.
Sorry, how long was I out for? Okay, I'll just go into the content. Sorry, guys. Everything okay now?
Yep, perfect.
Okay. So, like Noah mentioned, with the top company list, you'll a lot of times get a map of the career fair just because it is so big, usually in an auditorium or the business school, which is a big building. Just make sure you prioritize where you're going to go first. Set time limits at each table. Like I mentioned, you'll see the long lines when you get there, people wanting to talk to their companies that they're wanting to target. But just make sure you kind of set a limit. If you've been waiting in line for 30 minutes and there's only a couple hours left in the event, it might be good to move on, see if you can spot a shorter line with one of the companies that you want to talk to. And that kind of goes along with staying flexible. It's not going to go exactly as planned, like any big networking event. So just make sure that you kind of think on the fly, prioritize what's most important to you, and take it from there. And I think it's always important with anything, taking breaks, just get a snack in between talking to companies, especially if you're moving from one side of the building to another. Just stay hydrated, take a snack, get a little bite to eat before you talk to another company that you're interested in. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Dress code for career fairs are definitely important, and just engaging with recruiters in general. Always wear a business professional. It looks like you guys are mostly all in business professional. You guys are looking great out there. Just keep yourself with a neat appearance. Wear a nice suit jacket, nice pants, nice shoes, and just kind of dress for the part. You don't want any you don't want to have any like negative notes taken down about you in regards to what you're wearing. Smile. I think that's the most important thing. I'm always someone that says it's important to be a light in the room, be memorable with your smile. I think it's always great to set a first impression with a firm handshake as well. Don't be like everyone else, just kind of like dragging your feet through the event. Smile, be energetic, and you'll be memorable. Next, what to talk about. I know it's kind of scary walking up there to a recruiter who has a lot of experience, talks to a lot of talented students. But if you highlight the achievements that you have done throughout college, talk about some internships that you had, some leadership roles that you had in a fraternity or in any other clubs that you're involved in, and just demonstrating those skills from there will be a great way to start. Ask questions around culture, what the role entails. That'll show that you're genuinely interested and curious about what you can get involved in, and make sure that the recruiter has great things to say about you in regards to what what kind of information you're bringing to the table and what kind of questions you're asking. Lastly, showing genuine interest and discussing future goals. That shows that you're like a future focused person. You have goals for yourself. That's a great sign from a recruiter standpoint, seeing that this person, even though they're young, has great aspirations for their future, especially if it's within the industry that aligns to the company, and showing how your career goals fit into what a career path could be at that company that you're talking to. Gathering information is important. I don't know. I talked about this. I'll keep this. Am I good? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Sorry. It's important to have your smartphone out to capture those QR codes, get all the information you need by taking down notes, any emails, and LinkedIn names to jot down and make sure you're following up. That's the most important part, in my opinion, to make sure you're getting all the pieces of information you need in order to do a swift follow-up after the career fair. Sending thank you emails, following up in general is key. In my opinion, if you don't do this, you have no chance of continuing the conversation with that company and moving forward in the interview process. You want to make sure you collect the emails of those recruiters, get their business card, and personalize it. Bring in a piece of information that you caught. Maybe if they said that they like pickleball or fishing or camping, just mention that and talk about something that you do that's similar. express gratitude, thank them for their time. It's a really long event for them. They talk to a lot of students, but that's how you're going to end up standing out at the end of the day, is personalizing that note. On LinkedIn, like Sahil said, it's important to also connect with them so they can see what is going on in your professional life. Send that message, personalize a note, like in the email, so then they actually, connect back with you. Engage with their content is important as well. I've actually heard from multiple recruiters from big companies that interacting with their posts is a huge way for them to show that you're interested. Make sure to plan your follow-up as well. Set reminders to follow up maybe once a quarter if you're younger, or right before the next career fair event, to be like, hey, like, I loved meeting you last career fair last year. I'm excited to meet you again and catch up, see what's going on, what's new in your life. I think that kind of initiative is important to build relationships that will end up with you getting interviews at the end of the day.
I want to just sort of kind of throw in, like, I know these sometimes sound tacky, but I've been going to career fairs now, and a lot of students have like the dot cards, which is like the business card where you could tap it on somebody's phone, it'll like transfer your contact information. Highly recommend. They're only like 15, $20, and they last like they last like 5, 6 months easy, but like I've seen them last like a year. Highly recommend it. It's a super great way just to sort of like connect with people on the go. I also just want to like zone in on what Jason said as well. So for example, this week I'm going to a career fair on when I went yesterday to Atlanta for a fair, went today, and I'm going to another one tomorrow. If you don't email like a recruiter within 12 hours, not even 24 hours, if you don't email somebody within 12 hours, they're already on to the next activity or next assignment, right? So it's like you really want to make sure you zone in and like you're really making that impact as quick as possible. And then like I'm sure Noah and Jason can all attest to this, but it's like don't feel afraid to send a follow-up email as well if you don't hear within 3 to 5 business days. Like if you haven't heard, follow up in a week and just sort of see what happens. Like at one point, stop bothering people, obviously, but definitely there is that balance of reaching back out, because like I will not tell you on how many emails I miss, and as soon as somebody reaches back out, like I'll respond back within minutes.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well, what Sahil just mentioned. It's really important, like kind of the story I mentioned earlier with Grant. He sent a follow-up email, a great note, personalized note within an hour of the event. And that very night, they responded back and they said, hey, we're actually out at dinner right now. Like, we would love for you to come by. So I think that is proof right there that if you do a swift follow-up right after the conversation, that hits their inbox, they see that you sent a personalized note and you went out of your way to do that. It's super important and goes a long way. It means a lot to them, to show that you're actually interested in the company and the role.
Awesome. What we'd love to do is sort of kind of pivot it over to any questions that y'all have. So, whether you want to come off of mute or whether you want to drop one in the chat. I got one directly messaged to me. What other career events are on campus and where can we find them? Usually most campuses are using Handshake now or other platforms as well. See what your campus is using. I know just in the next week, Josh and I were talking about it. Like there's like an etiquette dinner on campus, there's info sessions, there's workshops. Definitely try to go as many different things. Employers take attendance, even when they tell you they don't, they do. And they track on if you don't show up as well. So make sure you don't commit to like everything and not being able to show up. Make sure that you're super tactical on that part. How do you find the best keywords that get through the automated screening on resumes? Jason, no, I'm gonna ask this question a little bit of a different way. When you guys come up with your resumes, or even like when you're like changing jobs and stuff like that, what was your strategy? And Jason, same thing. Like, what was your strategy on putting your resume together? And then I'll give like the recruiter answer.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of my personal strategies is first looking at the job description, right? There's a ton of information on that job description that shows exactly what they're looking for, whether it's necessary skills and experience or preferred skills and experience. And the most that you can show on your resume, the better, because they have told you very clearly on that job posting what they are looking for. And if you can demonstrate within your resume that you have that skills and experience available, it makes you a strong candidate. And I think directly related to the automatic screening piece, you can pull those words directly from that posting. Look for the ones that are kind of the verb words, the action words, and find a place to put those in, whether it's actually in the text of your resume's narrative Or another strategy that has been employed is knowing that you have that footer place on your resume, that footer category within the Word document, and you can actually insert the keywords that you want into that space and make the text white so it doesn't show up. And you have those words embedded in your resume. No one will even know that they're there. None of the recruiters will see them. But when it runs through that automated screening, that automation will pick it up because it is text that's existing in that file. So that's kind of a secret strategy that often will give you an extra competitive edge over others that don't know that trick. So make note of that. I think it'll be useful for you guys.
Yeah, I think
Jason, what about you?
Yeah, for me, when I knew that I wanted to do a career shift the last couple of months, when I was applying to Google, I used like what Noah job description, and I still have a career profile section at the top of my resume. That's like kind of the paragraph career summary, some people will say. I enter in a lot of the keywords that I see there, like if it's a sales role, like background in software sales, stuff like that, then I'll just add those types of things into the career profile section. I think that's an easy place to add it in. Or you can do what Noah did and do the white text at the bottom, but I think it's an easy way to do it as well if it's just at the top of your resume in that career summary section.
Yeah, two resources I'll drop in the chat. The first is it's called jobscan.co. I think you get a certain amount which you could use before you have to pay for it. What you could do is you could copy and paste your resume, then copy and paste the job description, and it'll actually tell you what percentage of the keywords you're using in your resume. So it's a really cool, handy tool. And the other one is like honestly just chat GPTing it, right? It's like copy and paste the job description, then copy and paste your resume and ask like chat GPT to be like, hey, what words can I use from the job description and help me change my bullets, and like it'll do all the work for you. Again, definitely go through with the comb and figure it out, but definitely some opportunities to leverage some of those AI tools. But yeah, Caleb, what's up?
Hey, so I've seen in my own experience that the 30 to 45-second pitches at the fairs are kind of like a little unnatural and long. So I was wondering if y'all have any, ideas or tips on how to kind of condense these or kind of fit them more into the conversation.
I think in my experience, I think Sahil can kind of correct me on this, but I always format it as too professional, too personal. So of course, the introduction, like, hi, my name is Jason Nacario. I'm a senior and professional selling major at Baylor University, et cetera, et cetera. But I kind of frame it as entering in like two pieces of professional experience. So whether that be like my leadership role in AKSI or an internship that I had in the past, just talking briefly about those, and then two personal things about me. So like whether that be a hobby or interest, I come from a large family, a fun fact about me, something like that, are good ways to kind of like break the ice as well. I always like to end on the personal side as well to kind of just build rapport and show a little bit more about me past just what I am as a job candidate.
Fun fact, Jason's a triplet, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I always say. It's an easy one.
Yeah. So sorry if you're not a triplet, but that's just your fault.
You can say you're a triplet. Just fake it till you make it. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think I think just being tactical as well, like the way I would think about it is like I hate the people at career fair, like I'll use this word very frankly, who are like, let me just give you a breath for a second. Yeah, how's your day going? I'm like, I don't care how my own day is going. Like I'm here to get through these line of people. So it's like definitely don't try to like be like that cool person who's like, hey, yeah, like let's just vibe and hopefully it'll break like the rhythm. Like don't do that. I do think there is some aspect of like, hey, how's your day going? Like to some level. And then just going and getting right into it. So my name's Sahil Maherali. I'm a senior at UTSA studying marketing. Previously interned here. Would love to learn about the roles that you have at your company fitting this background. Or hey, I saw that you have these types of roles, but would love to hear what you're recruiting for today. Oftentimes what happens is that companies are not just only recruiting for or only recruiting for some of the roles on campus, like only some of the recruiters might be there, not all of them. So you just want to be mindful as well. And like if the accounting person is there and you're studying marketing, best case is just get the contact information on who to talk to and then go from there. But cool. Any other questions from the audience?
I had a specific one. Sorry, I didn't use the raise my hand function.
Yeah, what's up?
I was just wondering, like for those of us who want to go into really like niche areas, I know for me, I want to go into finance, but specifically regulation. How do you go about, like you said, interacting with recruiters who normally 9 times out of 10 are not recruiting for my specific function, but I still want to interact with that company and get directed to the correct person.
Yeah. Noah, Jason, feel free to jump in here and talk internally about how it works at y'all's places. But I know, for example, during my time at Dell, referrals are a huge part. It is actually a cash incentive to refer people. So sometimes it's not necessarily the recruiter who might be the best point of contact, but like, say for example, if a marketing specialist is there and that's like the last person you want to talk to, but that person could still internally put you into the pool and stuff like that. I do know as well that most companies will have like a debrief at the end of the career fair, like they'll go grab dinner somewhere and they'll sort of talk through like profiles that stood out but they weren't able to recruit for today. So definitely know that like even if you can't go in that direction, I think the last is like just asking straight up like who is the person you would recommend I reach out to, grab the name or grab a name if you can, and then use a tool like there's this website, I think it's called hunter.io, where you could just put in like somebody's name and then what company they work at, and it'll generate like what the template is. So for example, at McKinsey, it's first name underscore last name. So as soon as you know somebody's first name and last name, you can figure out what their email is. So definitely just try to be more resourceful. But I do know, and like this happens to us all the time when I'm recruiting for consulting roles and somebody wants like a data science or CS role, the best bet is ask me who is recruiting for it. If I don't know, like follow up with me and then in 2 to 3 days and then ask me on if I could introduce you to the right person. But I don't know, Noah, Jason, if
Thank you so much.
yeah, no, Jason, I don't know if you guys have any particular advice as well.
Yeah, I was going to talk about referral programs. Like that's a really big thing at companies. Like at both companies I've been involved with. You do get a cash incentive for referring people, and if they get the job, then you get X kind of bonus. So that's a good point that Sahil made. Even if they're not the right recruiter, and they still like you, they can refer you to the role that you are interested in, and you can end up interviewing through that way. But it's just really important, whoever's there, to follow up with that person and ask, who's the right person to speak with. I think it's like that's a strength of yours, is to show that you actually have a very specific thing that you're looking for. That shows you've done a lot of research in your career path and you know what you want. So be confident with that piece of information. And I know that the recruiters will be impressed with that and want to point you in the right direction there.
Yeah, and then
Thank you.
I'll add to that as well and say, don't limit yourself to that specific space as well. Like if you know there's a company you want to work for and you know that that's the area you're targeting, getting into the company is a big step, right? And I'll say even for myself with my first role at Zillow, I started on the acquisition side, but I never wanted to be on the acquisition side. Like my goal was to be a portfolio manager, and I took that role just to get in the door and demonstrate those skills and show that that I had what it took to be an asset manager. So oftentimes, like you can share what your interest is and say that this is the area I'm targeting, but whatever is available to you, don't let that opportunity go away because it's not exactly what you're looking for. Sometimes you have to take what's there and be able to get in the door and then demonstrate why you want to be where you are and what you have to contribute.
Thank you so much, all three of you. Great advice.
Yeah, for sure. Another question that came into the chat: are there any common mistakes that students make at a career fair that we should know about? I have like a full list. Like I could do a whole another session on mistakes that people make. But I'll give you like my top three that just come to my head. The first is like the students who are like hoarders. Like they'll like go around and pick up like the free pen from this one and the free ice cream from this one and the free chocolate from this. Like people like walk around with like tote bags. And that's an instant red flag. If I see somebody carrying around like other company merch that like is dripping out and like they're like figuring it out and like they have like a drawstring bag, like that's a red flag. Like it's okay. I know a lot of y'all are like struggling college students, but you don't need like the sunglasses that some other company provided. Like you could go somewhere else and get them. Like that's like tip number one. Tip number two is understanding the way your career fair works at your school. So for example, when I was working at UT as a career coach, they have a very strict no backpacks policy, and checking in your backpack takes about 30 minutes at the career fair. So if you like make the mistake of taking your backpack, you lose about 45 minutes, like 30 minutes to go give your backpack and 15 minutes to grab it after. So if you only have 3 hours in between classes or an hour in between classes to go to the career fair, you just lost almost half your time just doing that as well. And then the third is I think students who are just come up to me and say, oh, so what does your company do? Or it's like, oh, like tell me about I'm like, I'm not here to tell you about my company. You're here to tell me why you want to work at my company. So definitely just be very strategic on like walk by the poster once, like sort of kind of like when you walk by somebody, like just look at them once, find the name, and then like go to like the corner, Google them really quickly, see what they do, and then go back and talk to that person. Like don't go up to the person and be like, oh, what does Google do, or what does PwC do? No, Jason, any other key mistakes that whether you made or other people made?
100%. The two things are lack of preparedness. It's so important to come prepared, at least know what they do on a baseline level, what their culture is all about, and then lack of a follow up is going to be your automatic to get out the door resume thrown in the trash can. Honestly, like those are the two things. Like if you do two things, it's prepare, at least have a baseline line knowledge of what the company does and what kind of roles they're offering, and send a follow-up note to show that you actually care and want to continue the conversation with the company.
Yep. And I think on that lack of preparedness piece, I think a big part is that pitch, right? It's very, very apparent if you show up to a career fair for the first time and you haven't at least sort of practiced that. And one thing to make clear, that pitch does not have to be a direct script. You do not have to say the same thing every single time. You just have to get to a point where you've practiced that spiel enough that you're comfortable in whatever order it comes out or how you speak it, that it's smooth, that it sounds like you've had that conversation multiple times and that you're prepared to be there and sell yourself and be able to have a conversation with a recruiter. So I would say probably one of the biggest mistakes is just coming without having had that preparation and being ready to speak to yourself and introduce yourself.
Yeah, and I sort of want to level set in terms of like, look, the primary objective is not like going to the fair and like locking eyes with somebody and they tell you everything about themselves and they offer you a job, and like that is so rare where that happened. Like that story Jason said, the true value of a career fair from an employer is I met a bunch of students who are interested in my company. I provided them the information to apply, and now they're in our system. Like that is the true value of why a company goes to a career fair. They're not there to find that one in a million candidate. They are, that's a secondary reason, but it's not the primary reason they're there. And so know that if your career fair experience is not like, oh, I didn't get connect with anybody or it felt really rushed, that is completely okay. Your primary goal as a student is to know which companies recruit at my school, what are the positions they're recruiting for, and do I know the deadlines? Like that should be your three buckets to go forward. And I see Jason agrees with me. But cool. Any last questions, y'all, before we wrap up for today?
Yeah, I have a question. Will it be inappropriate to like ask the salary range or working hours to recruiters?
Yeah, I think it depends on the state, right? So it's like in states like Colorado and stuff, they're required to disclose salary. I think in other places, I don't think the career fair is the right place to ask like salary and working like working hours and stuff like that. I think a lot of that stuff's on the job description after. Like, and again, you have maybe two questions. You have an opportunity to ask a recruiter. I wouldn't spend it asking on like what's the salary range of the role, because realistically, if you're talking to somebody, they most likely don't know the role. They don't know the salary either off the top of their head.
And then I'll follow up and say too, just think about your audience and think about the channel that you're getting that information. It may not be appropriate to ask the recruiter directly at a career fair, but oftentimes you can find that information elsewhere. And I will say like Reddit is a great place to find information. There's a lot of people on there that currently work in that industry or at that company and are willing to share that information openly. And so you can do your own research to find out what life is like at that company and figure out what the culture is like, what the working hours are like, what the salary expectations are for certain roles. And I would definitely recommend going those channels and reaching out kind of to the community where you can look and have those conversations and the ability to research that information without directly asking the recruiter in a career fair setting.
Yeah, thank you for responding.
Awesome. Any last questions, y'all, before we wrap up for today?
Yeah, just a quick question. As a freshman, how do you stand out to like try to get like that freshman internship? Because I kind of feel like when they hear freshman, it's one. I mean, I've been told when they hear freshman, it's 1 year in, 1 year out kind of thing for them. But I don't know if that's true. Like some advice on that.
Yeah, I think transparently, like it is a 1 year in, 1 year out for the companies that aren't looking for somebody, right? So it's like I think like again, I think career fairs are the wrong time to go to a company like a Google, a Deloitte, where they have like the lines out the door and stuff, like you're really not going to get much information unless like you're going for a very specific reason. But there's a lot of companies out there who will be flexible with it, and I'm sure Jason and Noah could talk about like, their experiences too. I think when it comes to you being a freshman, your primary goal should be those small size, mid-sized companies to really build that. Like there is a very few freshmen jump all the way to like a Johnson and Johnson or a Google or a PwC or a SpaceX Twitter type internship, their first job, right? So it's really about those stepping stones and using the career fair to sort of kind of help craft that. But I don't know, Jason, know if you have anything else about the freshman experience.
Yeah, the freshman experience is all about building the relationship with the companies as well, not so much after an internship as well. If you do have aspirations to be in FANG or Big Four or MBB consulting, you can always build relationships, show what you want as a freshman, and then they'll remember you, your sophomore, junior year when there are internships available. But I agree with Sahil. It's important to build your resume to be ready for those types of companies if that's what you aspire to be. And those small middle-sized companies probably offer internships to younger classmen and have great transferable skills that you can build and put on your resume to make it even stronger moving forward, to receive an offer down the road from a bigger company.
Yeah, and I think sometimes like we're just like really like, I don't know the right word because we're recording this. I think sometimes we're just really dumb with the way that we look for jobs. For example, if you are a freshman in AK Sci, look at where all your sophomore friends interned last summer. You automatically know that company will take on freshmen. Like it's you don't need to go to a career fair to find a freshman year internship. All your friends most likely interned at this small PE firm or a local accounting firm or something like that. And if you have a good relationship with them, some of you might be pledging, I'm assuming. But it's like as soon as you come in next semester, or like even if you have that relationship now, ask them, can you introduce me to whoever your boss was last summer? I want to work where you did. Like it's this everlasting cycle, right? And I think sometimes we think, oh, the career fair is the one place to get a job or one of the only few avenues. Just look at anybody who did it before you and intern that freshman year summer or sophomore year summer, see where they did it, and chances are they are ready to take a freshman year intern. But yeah, awesome. Any last questions, y'all, before we wrap up for tonight? Awesome. Before you'll hop off, huge thank you to our panelists, Jason and Noah, for hanging out with us today. Feel free to reach out to them on LinkedIn or anything like that as well. Super, super helpful. And then huge shout out to Liz and Josh for help producing this, putting it together, running the Zoom, and all that kind of good stuff. So really appreciate that. We need your feedback. We need to know, was this effective? What topics do you want to hear? Josh dropped it in the chat, but if everyone before they leave could just fill out that form, we definitely want to make sure that we're capturing the right information, and we hope to see you at our next session in a few weeks. But cool. Thank y'all, and y'all can start hopping off now. Have a good one.